Hello, and welcome to the first episode of Mid-Market Leaders, a podcast featuring some of America's most impactful, but probably lesser known business leaders. My name is Jeff Cass. I'm an executive coach who retired in 2023 after more than 30 years of leadership in corporate America. I'll be your host. For those of you who followed the Top 4 podcast that I hosted last year, welcome back. For those of you that have not followed my work, I'm a retired business leader who had the opportunity to lead teams ranging in size from 5 to 1,000 people in 3 different corporations. My leadership experience ranged from groups focused on technical sales in the Midwestern US to a national sales team focused on the largest US manufacturing companies. And finally, I ended up in a general management role, managing a P&L of over $500 million, operating Midwestern US region for one of the largest industrial gas companies. I'll include my LinkedIn profile and show notes so you can read more about my experience if you're interested. Some of you might be wondering, if I retired, why am I starting this podcast and doing executive coaching now? I would say this: in the last 10 years of my career, I let my jobs become all consuming, which didn't leave enough room for family, for friends, or for life goals like traveling with my wife of almost 35 years. In short, it just wasn't healthy. And I came to realize that my personality was probably the problem. That all-in personality helped me succeed in many things, from athletics early in life to over 3 decades in business. However, it seemed to be leading me down a path of working until the day I died, and most likely pushing many life goals to the back burner. Maybe some of you have found yourself in a similar situation or have had a rude awakening when someone in your circle dies much too early. I'll just say that my eyes were open, and I was lucky enough to retire at 55 from the corporate life. My brother, Matt, has been my financial planner for over 20 years, and we talked about working part-time for about 10 years after retiring. He works with many retirees, and he knows me well enough to know that I need to do more than just golf, travel, and socialize. And of course, he was right. I very much enjoy spending time with people who have been successful in business and learning how they've achieved their success. I also wanted to use what I've learned over the 30 some years to help others in business today achieve their goals faster than they might on their own. So that's really what led me to become an executive coach. I met a lot of great business leaders in our new hometown of Charlotte, North Carolina last year while hosting the Top Floor podcast. I enjoyed giving these people the opportunity to tell their leadership journey because, frankly, these folks are pretty interesting. I know many of the podcast followers enjoyed their insights, and we built a solid following over the 13 episodes we produced last year. However, that podcast was run by an English company who used folks like me in different cities, mostly across the UK and the US, to produce their podcasts. The network I built during my career was spread across the US. It wasn't just in Charlotte. And I wanted to stay more connected to that larger network in the second career. So I decided late last year to move away from the Top Floor and to begin my own podcast that has a national footprint and one that is focused on some of those same interesting business leaders. So as I began exploring this topic further, I came across some information from the National Center for the Middle Market. This research organization, which works in cooperation with the Ohio State University Fisher College of Business, provides a lot of information about middle market companies. And even though I worked with many middle market companies during my career, I was shocked at really the impact of our economy. So according to the National Center, these businesses are so important that they describe them as fundamental to our nation's economic outlook and prosperity. Now, just by definition, they define the middle market as companies with annual revenues between $10 million and $1 billion. And these companies represent less than 5% of all US businesses, but they make up over a third of our private sector GDP and 60% job growth. So it's pretty significant. And these companies in total would be the fourth largest global economy. So think in terms of Germany or Japan. So they're significant. And really, if you look at the results over the last 4 years, their average revenue growth was over 12%, and their employment growth was over 10%. Pretty impressive stats, frankly. And I got a chance to meet Doug Farron, who is the managing director of the National Center for the Middle Market. He's been with them since 2011. He shared that many of these companies are typically not well known. Most of us know the small entrepreneurial businesses in our local towns, and we know the many large name brand companies that dominate the business headlines. These middle market businesses are not that. They're often niche providers or value chain businesses that support larger companies. In my opinion, these companies are rock stars that most of us just don't know very well. And really, that's in a crux. That's the reason why I want to give them a chance to tell their very interesting stories on this podcast. I plan on doing monthly video and audio interviews with people who lead middle market businesses across the U.S. I know the video is not commonly used for podcasts, or not as commonly used for podcasts as audio, but frankly, I like both mediums. And I feel the video gives a more personal connection to myself and the guests. So I'll post those videos on my YouTube channel, and I'm working with Queen City Podcast Network to publish the audio on Spotify and Apple. So given that background, I want to introduce our first middle market rock star guest, Chad Beatty. He has run his Charlotte-based trucking company, Highways and Skyways, since 2011. Chad, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jeff. Thank you. Thanks
Yeah,
for having
you bet. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you bet. All right, first guest. Wow. I really appreciate you saying yes to that. I know you and I have talked and we've become friends, I would say, over the last year, but I do appreciate you being on the show and being the first guest.
I appreciate you having me. I'll tell you, this is the first time I've done anything like this.
Okay. Yeah, and as you and I have talked, this is really just a conversation. So you and I have had many conversations over coffee, wide-ranging conversations. This one will probably be more in around your business and yourself. Let's start with that. How did you become the leader of your business?
My business partner and I, Matthew Hunter, we were actually both employed with another trucking company, and we got bought out. And I've been there almost 15 years. It was a good family-owned company. Really thought a lot of the owners and thought a lot of the management they had in place. And when we sold, there really wasn't any issues, but it was a good time. If we were ever going to start our own business, well, that was a good time to do it. So basically, we decided, we put a business plan together, again, at that point, we'd both been in the industry for a lot of years. My background had started out as LTL, and then we moved to truckload and dedicated work where we were. My partner's background was more small packages, expedite, that kind of thing. And then he got into the truckload and dedicated. So we took a little bit of everything that we knew and decided what was going to be the best future for us. The easiest thing to build. And we settled on the truckload and dedicated work with warehousing and brokerage. Build a business plan, and then it was how to kick it off. And we looked at a couple different models. We talked to some people about actually just borrowing money and starting from scratch. And through the course of this, while we were trying to get it up and going, we got introduced to two guys in Greensboro, North Carolina, Don Swaim and Kyle Kesselring. And they owned Highways and Skyways of North Carolina at the time. So we were able to get a meeting with them, and basically we struck a deal to open up a separate Highways and Skyways. So we became Highways and Skyways Transportation, but we were partnered with those guys, and it enabled them to grow. They grew into a market they weren't in, and it gave us a quicker start, if you will. They had leases in place. We were able to get trucks quicker. We were able to pay trucks quicker. There was just some established things that we didn't have to go through some of the problems of getting set up. Is as a broker, it's paying carriers. And of course, everybody knows how long you've been in business. And if you don't have things established to get people paid quickly, then they're leery of working for you or with you. So they enabled us to do some of those things. The other big thing was benefits for the employees. We knew we wanted to hire drivers. Anybody that's in trucking knows drivers are hard. They're hard to come by. And if you get a good one, you want to get them and keep them. Well, one of the ways to do that is benefits. So by partnering with Highways and Skyways of North Carolina, we were able to do that from day one, essentially. And of course, we gave up some ownership, and it was a lot of learning through the way. But overall, it was a good partnership. When we went into it, it was negotiated that it was I hate to say temporary. but they knew when we started that we eventually wanted to own the whole thing. I think we were partners for, it was 6 or 7 years. They actually approached us. We were okay. They approached us and said, hey, now seems like a good time for you guys to buy us out. And so we bought them out. It was, I guess, 7 or 8 years ago.
Okay.
And it's just been Matthew and I since then.
Okay. Yeah, that seems like having a lot of the setup issues already taken care of for you was a big benefit for you to get going. You didn't have to solve all those problems.
It was. We had relationships with people, but again, especially in something trucking wise, new MC numbers, new banks, all those kind of things, it just throws a lot of red flags. So being able to basically partner with another carrier like that, it helped us get established much faster, I feel. We could have done it by ourselves, but I really think it would have took longer. I don't know that we could have got up and going as fast as we did. Like I say, they already had a TMS system in place. Basically, we just had to become a member of it and those kind of things. So it was, like I say, I think it was a good move on our part. I think it turned out to be a good move on their part. I think it worked out for them. I hope they think we brought that to the equation, and it's a good relationship. I still keep in touch with both those guys, one of them more than the other. They've since moved on to do other things, but like I say, it's a good relationship, and like I say, we benefited from it. I really appreciate what they did for us to help get us. And ultimately, as we keep going, I'd be interested in doing the same for somebody else, pass it on kind of thing. If that opportunity ever came to pass.
Yeah, it makes sense. It seems like it was good for you and for your partners. So that's good stuff.
It was.
Now, yeah, if you would, let's go back to what you said earlier. You said it was a good time for you and your partner to start a business or buy a business. A lot of people don't have that risk tolerance to do that. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because that's biting off a lot personally, right?
It was, and it was scary. When basically rolling into it, of course, there were some long conversations with my wife and I. Sure there was, between Matthew and his wife. And essentially, I had 9 months to get rolling. And the pressure, I think the pressure was a good thing. It was a motivating factor. I'll be honest with you, the first 3 weeks after we did this, Matthew or I, neither one talked about it. We talked about it later. But the first 3 weeks was torture. I hate to say it that way, but it was like we couldn't get things rolling that you thought you were going to get rolling. And so you're sitting there, you've left a good job, fairly high paying job with benefits, and you've walked out for zero. There's no guarantees, there's no nothing. And we really, it took a little bit to get it rolling. Now, once things started rolling, we never looked back. I think honestly, if this ended today, I'd be looking to do this again. I don't think I'd be looking to go back to work for somebody else ever again, unless it was just, if something happened here and I decided, okay, I'm going to work part-time for somebody to help them, share some knowledge, that kind of thing. But to actually take a job for a paycheck, I wouldn't want to do that again. The feelings that you get from doing it for yourself, helping people, creating jobs, that's really cool. It really is. When, you're helping people, and at this point, I think with the contractors and company people, we've got 62 people that work for us.
Okay.
That's to go from when we opened, we were working in a closet, literally. We had a friend that loaned us, they moved some, it was a blueprint room. They had blueprints stored in there. We helped them move the blueprints out of these two closets, and Matthew and I set up in the closets and installed a phone system and some computers, and away we went. And but to go from that to having 62 people that are getting paid every week is a really good feeling.
Okay, I bet you built something significant. Yeah.
Yeah, and some of it's you're doing it for yourself, but you're also doing it for them. That was one of the goals when we set out to open a company, is to build a company that people would want to work with. I've got two women that work here that have been with us for 13 years. We've got drivers that have been with us over 10 years. And to get and keep people like that is really important. And like I say, it feels good. It's like we're doing something right to keep people like that, and feel like you're helping them too. They're helping us build our company. Hopefully we're helping them with providing pay every week and good benefits and some security, hopefully.
Yeah, my guess is that you know your employees pretty well, right? It's more than just a paycheck. It's their family, some of their struggles, and maybe too much sometimes. I don't know. Maybe that's the case.
It depends. It depends on the employee, but we have an open door policy. So my door is always open. Matthew's door is always open. You walk in here, you might be third in line to get in to see me. And I might be doing nothing but sitting here just joking with one of my drivers, but they'll just come through. I like having that relationship with everybody. So very hands-on. But I think everybody needs to have access to whoever they need to have access to.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
There's no closed doors here, whether it's me or any of our other management. Anybody can come in and have a conversation at any time. We need to close the door. Sometimes it's personal stuff, sometimes it's business stuff, sometimes it's just stuff. It might be the joke that they recently heard. It's just whatever they want to talk about. So.
Yeah, okay, that's cool. Seems like you built a good culture. Now, you had said, let me just use the word you used, the first 3 weeks were torture, right? It sounds like the rest of the 11 years or 13 years have been a lot better. But what's your biggest challenge today in business? Because certainly getting started, that was a challenge. But today, what has it morphed into? What are the challenges?
Some of them are the same. The always getting and keeping good employees, of course, because in a role, even if we keep everybody, we have to grow. So you're constantly looking for new people, And then the other thing that we're faced with is, honestly, it's the economy, and more importantly, freight rates. And they've been calling the last 3.5 years a freight depression. But 2021, freight rates went nuts. After the shutdown, freight rates went nuts there, and there was just an overabundance of things that needed to move. And there was lack of capacity. And so what happened, it seems like there was a huge growth in the number of trucks on the road after that. And that pressure has just pushed the rates down tremendously. Now, we hope that's going to turn around in 2025. But it's just something that us, and as far as I know, every other trucking company has been dealing with it. We get some data on trucking companies. We do our own thing, so we pay a little attention to what's going on out there, but our main worry is about us. But we do see that like closures for trucking companies, from what we've seen, closures have gone from about 1,000 a week to 6,000. Now, a lot of these are one truck operations, three truck operations, but some of them are 40 trucks, 600 trucks.
Okay.
There's just a lot of pressure on rates. And when you add that to inflation, trucks have gone up so much, trailers went up so much. Prior to COVID, we could buy a trailer for, call it $30,000. During COVID and right after COVID, trailers shot up to $80,000.
Wow.
They more than doubled. Now they've come back down again. They're probably in the low 40s now, but they haven't gotten back to where they were. Maintenance is incredibly expensive. Tires are incredibly expensive. Just to give you an idea, I got a bill the other day. Now there was a road call involved in it. We had a driver go down with a flat tire, and we had to send somebody out to replace a tire. It was almost $1,800.
Wow.
One tire. Now there's 18 of them on that truck. One tire was $1,800.
Yikes. And the freight rates haven't come up quite as much as some of those costs, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they haven't. The freight rates have actually gone down. It's like I say, I think we'll see some relief this year, hopefully. I think there's been a lot of fallout. I mean, there's a lot of companies that have left the marketplace. And so we'll see what happens. And I don't think it'll turn. In trucking, there's what they call the spot market, basically where brokers get freight from shippers and then they put it out on the spot market. And what we do is we always keep a certain amount of our assets exposed to the spot market because that's our ability to grow. Basically, if I've got 2 trucks with a customer, my goal is for him to call me when he needs 3 trucks. I've got to have that 3rd truck. So for me to have that 3rd truck is to have a truck that's running on spot market freight. And that's really been beat up over the last 3 years. The spot market is really rough right now.
Okay.
And
I imagine you've probably seen a lot of fluctuations in business and issues that have come up over time. Is that part of the attraction for you or the satisfaction you get out of running the business? Because I know you fairly well, I think. You're a pretty thoughtful person, but is solving those problems every day part of what keeps you interested, or is it torture going back to what happened in the first 3 weeks of the business?
No, I enjoy trucking. There was a time that I didn't. I got out of trucking for about a year. It's been 30 years ago. But when I came back to trucking, I don't know. It's been different since I came back. I've looked at it different. I guess it made it more of a choice. I didn't feel like I was stuck in it. I left trucking for a year. I did some other things, found out it worked for me. I just had I hate to say you got a natural talent for something, but I just had an ability in trucking to be able to see things. And a lot of it's relationships. Relationships with shippers or relationships with your drivers. But I enjoy trucking. I love to go in, and I'm not a great salesman when it comes to, say, cold calls. But if somebody can get past the cold call part, if we can go in and talk nuts and bolts with somebody, I love that. Love to come in and get a tour of somebody's production facility, see what they do, how they do it, and then what their problem is we've got to get this out of here. We need a place to sell this scrap, or we need a trailer. We need trailers, a certain kind of trailer to do this with. It's great to be able to come in and help somebody figure out a solution for their transportation needs.
Okay.
And they're not the be all end all. I can't fix every problem. And that's not always our goal. If we go in and we're talking to somebody and we're like, okay, if we were doing, this is what we would suggest. And I may not be the person to even provide that fix, but I can give them a starting place on where to go. Thought about doing this, that kind of thing. And we try to build partnerships. When we left that other company, we didn't necessarily go and try to call on all their business. We really went out and tried to find other business. But over the years, some of that business came to us more just because people found out where we were. And you had a long-term, operationally based relationship with somebody. And big thing is we try not to burn any bridges.
Yeah.
And we get a lot of business that way, even from people that move. Maybe we're doing something with somebody at a certain business. They leave that business for whatever reason. They go somewhere else and they end up in a similar role, or maybe even in a higher role, but they'll make the introduction to us, to the shipping people where they are. And which really feels good. When you get recommended from somebody to somebody as a business person, there's just no better feeling than, hey, when they come in, they go, hey, this is Chad. He did a real great job for me over there. If there's something he can help you out with, he's a good guy. That's really nice.
Very satisfying. Yeah. I could see that. So I want to go back to one thing you were saying. One of the top issues that you brought up first was hiring and retaining talent. And it sounds like you've done a fairly good job of that. You got a lot of long-term employees, but maybe talk a little bit about how you do that. How do you keep your workforce together and with you?
I guess to me, it starts with hiring. For the most part, to come to work here, they're going to come through me. I've got a woman that runs HR and safety for us now, but ultimately we're looking for a good fit. And I guess you'd say setting expectations. So ours and theirs. The driver-wise, especially, drivers really get abused out there. There's some people, some companies will tell somebody anything to get them to come on board. And we try to take the opposite approach. I try to set a decent expectation, but I would rather overperform as an employer than underperform. I don't want to tell somebody that I can do X, Y, and Z, and then they come in here and I can't do those things. So the interview process here depends on them. I've spent 15 minutes with somebody. I've spent 3 hours with somebody. And I'd rather do that on the front end than deal with somebody 60 days from now coming and going, look, this just isn't what you told me it was, or this didn't meet my expectations. I'm moving on. So I think that, to me, that's a big part of it, is making sure that we get the right people. But then we try to treat them right. Like I say, it's a team. Everybody comes in, every role is important, and we try to give them the tools and backing that they need. I'm not sure what else to say about it.
Okay. Yeah. Treat people the way you want to be treated, make a good home, be honest. And that sounds like what your motto is, which,
And like I say, I've even had people bring their spouses in, because it's, especially if you've got a stay-at-home spouse, a lot of times benefits are just a big issue. I'm like, hey, if you want to bring your wife in, bring her in. And I understand that they're a team at home, and just as we're a team at work. Especially we run 2 different fleets here. We've got a local fleet, which are guys, they're drivers that get home every day. And then we got an over-the-road fleet, which is they get home every week. And that is probably more important with the spouses. the over the road, because I know what the person that's at home, whether it's the wife or the husband, if they're at home, what they're having to deal with. So we try to, sometimes we'll bring them in to the relationship if they want to be. You know, so we've got wives calling, checking on drivers and things like that. It's a lot less now than it used to be. Now there's cell phones and that, but you know, but it's important that when somebody comes on, that it's been a family decision.
Okay.
There's pressure, whether it's money pressure or over benefits or whatever, then I just know that's not going to be a long-term relationship. And then we go into every employment relationship, we go into it, unless it's just a temporary job, we go into it with the plans of it being permanent.
Mhm.
We're looking for people to come here and stay here until they retire.
Okay.
When I'm looking for people that have that same sort of attitude. And we find that most people, if you treat them right and you do what you say, most of the time they come in, they're going to do a good job and they're going to stay with you. You know,
Okay.
say sometimes we have to get over the hurdle. I've had a few guys, specifically guys, that have been or felt like they were mistreated somewhere. And sometimes they'll tell you that in the interview. And I just tell them, like, look, I can't necessarily fix what you did, what happened to you, but don't hold that against me. Give me a chance and just react to me off of the way I treat you, not off of the way somebody else treated you.
Yeah.
You can't necessarily be responsible for what they did. I can really only be responsible for what me and my company do.
Yeah. That makes sense. Makes perfect sense. Yeah. Let's shift gears here a little bit if we can. Okay. It seems like you build a good culture there and you have a lot of good employees. Let's talk about technology. There's been a lot of news about AI and using it in day-to-day work. What kind of technology are you using to help progress the company? And have you used AI? And if so, how do you use it?
Yeah, we're not, I mean, some transportation companies may be real forward thinking. We've always used routing software
Mhm.
to get the trucks from point A to point B. We use it for rating and things like that. The technology has moved. We've got GPS in all the trucks,
Mhm.
forward-facing accident cameras in all the trucks, and that's been a huge improvement. If we're involved in an incident, we can immediately pull video. We even a lot of times will email that to the officer that's on site. A lot of times,
Oh, wow. That fast.
that fast, yeah, because it's unfortunately, if you're a big truck, sometimes there's a target on you. We've had people just do crazy things and they run into us, and then of course they're trying to point the finger at us, and you know, the video just takes that out of it. Because again, if we're at fault, we're going to say we're at fault and we're going to fix whatever it is. But if we weren't at fault, we want everybody to know we weren't at fault. So the video and being able to do it that fast has been really good. AI wise, they're starting to build some of that into the cameras. The cameras are getting better and better. And then really the only other thing that we've recently started using AI in the office to improve some things. I got introduced to ChatGPT, and now I think the other one is Copilot. So we've used it. We started this year, we started a newsletter. And we actually used AI to help make suggestions for the newsletter, improve some of the articles. We're using it a little bit in our sales, and especially in the cold calling, using it for some formatting, and it's really neat the way that AI, me and Pat Market, who's one of our salesmen, business development manager, we were talking yesterday, and it's like the AI kind of learns you and learns your tone the more that you use it. Because again, we use it, we'll use it for some structure and to correct some things, and then we'll make changes to it, additions and subtractions. But it seems like the more you use it, the less of that you have to do.
Okay.
So we're early on that as far as what we've learned. Like I say, this is new to us. We're trying not to be left behind, I guess you'd say. So, but we, other than that, we have been looking at some AI to help improve some pictures and helping. I guess it's done a little bit for social media. We've been trying to get more involved in social media. We really got to push trying to grow our brokerage company.
Okay.
So we've been using AI to help with some of the suggestions for marketing and things like that. It's really cool, some of the insights that you get from that. It's a neat tool.
It is. Yeah. I've used it a little bit for writing as well. And typically, I think, at least for me, tell me if this is how you guys use it. You write something and then you basically have the AI maybe give you suggestions on how else you could write it. Is that kind of the way you're using it?
Exactly. Yeah. And Kat was saying that she would tell it, she'll write something and then she'll tell it to have more of this type of tone or more of that type of tone. And it'll make some small changes to address those things or some small suggestions. And it's really cool. Like I say, I'm really interested in seeing where it goes from here. A little worried about what it can do.
The Jetsons are here, right? Next thing you know, you're going to have flying trucks, not just trucks over the road. Yeah,
that's the one thing. I'm not sure what AI is going to replace, but I'm pretty confident trucks are here to stay.
Yes.
I don't think that the Americans are going to change their buying habits. So all this stuff has to either get work in progress, has to get moved around, goods have to get to markets.
I think personally, and maybe you have some stats on this, I feel like we have more stuff going over the road, including that last mile, because it used to be we would go to stores and buy a lot of things. Now, so much is being delivered right to our home. Maybe you see that. Do you see the overall freight moving being higher?
Yes. Yeah, I think there's certain things that go away, but yeah, overall, I think there's, if you include the small trucks that are doing the final mile and the white glove, there's definitely more trucks on the road than what there was.
Yeah.
And we're more on the trucking side. We're big trucks, 53-foot dry van trade. Like I say, so we're generally dealing with either partially finished goods that are moving between facilities, or finished goods moving to warehousing, moving to retailers, that kind of thing. But yeah, I'd say there's definitely more shipments being moved. I'm not really in the LTL market anymore. I don't know what it's like. I know that it had changed. I'm old guy, so back when I was doing it, we did everything, and it was a lot of loose pieces. It wasn't uncommon to go somewhere and you picked up 16 boxes of something as an LTL shipment. Before I got out of it, that had moved to where those 16 boxes had to be on one pallet. Had to be shrink wrapped, things like that. So I'm sure that has continued to change. But like I say, I'm not really up on what was on there.
Okay. So let's shift gears here a little bit. I want to talk a little bit more about you. Talk maybe a little bit more about when you're making your toughest decisions, who do you talk to and who has been your best coach or mentor as you've had to deal with some of those tougher things?
Really depends on what those tough things are. I'll be honest with you, that's how I met you, was looking for a mentor, looking for a peer group. And so that's been something that I've gotten involved with lately. Early on in my career, it was more somebody that you looked up to. You would watch. I was early in my career, I got in with a big company, and honestly, a management training program. And then you just learned your way through There were some managers that you got to work with that you learned that you didn't want to be them, unfortunately. So you learned not to do this. There was one particular manager, he ran our break bulk, a guy by the name of Cecil Kaler. And I don't know if Cecil ever really understood how important to me he was, but Cecil was the guy that his door was always open. He ran the biggest facility in the network. He knew everybody's name. He was up on everything. He could dress you down and make you feel good about it when it was over with. I learned a lot just watching him and getting to work with him. There's been other guys along the way. When I was with West Brothers, the president of the company was Michael Flanagan, and one of the smartest people that I ever worked with. And
Okay.
I was the ops guy, but I learned a lot about a lot of things from Mike. He was big on procedures and big on budgets, and he was just a great guy. In fact, I still go to Mike. He's a friend. He's since retired, but if something came up today, of course, my first go-to here, and part of the reason that there's two of us that own this company is this partnership. So my first thing is, of course, Matthew, and he and I bring a little different perspective to everything that goes on. So if there's something that I'm not sure about, I bounce it off of him. Hey, what do you think? This is what we're faced with. Where do you fall in this? And then if it's something that we want or need outside influence, then we'll call somebody that we know. Like I say, Mike would be, again, Matthew worked for Mike also. So Mike would be one of our go-tos. Actually, before we started this company, we talked to Mike.
Okay.
We ran our business plan by him, and this is what we're thinking. Are we crazy? Are we not crazy? And got his help along the way with a few things. And then there's other people. Like I say, a lot of times what'll come up is going to be in trucking. Safety is always the biggest thing. So I've got a couple of resources for safety issues. If I've got a question on, do I have to do this or do I have to do that? I'll call one of those two guys and bounce it off of them. And but it's nice to have people that you can go to, people that would help you out.
Yeah. So you've built your own network, and now you and I did meet. We were talking about a peer group for Vistage. That peer group, I assume, has been a good addition for you, that you expand the folks that you can go to help you with things, and vice versa, you to them.
It has. I'll be honest with you, I personally haven't gotten as far along with that as I need to. The group is formed now, and it's a good group of people. I haven't necessarily pulled on them maybe the way that I could. Some of it's, for me, some of it's knowing what you need help with. So, what can you do better? If you think you're doing okay, it's knowing that maybe something's not as up to the level that it should be.
Okay.
Trying to identify those things.
That awareness. And
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. But even talking to other folks that are running businesses on a regular basis, maybe you hear a little bit more about what they're doing, whether that be in technology or AI or other things that might set off some bells for you, I'm guessing. Is that right?
It is. Yeah. The big thing, the funny thing to me is it seems like no matter who you get introduced to, it always boils down to people. It's amazing how many times it comes down to people, relationship with people, expectations of people, building your team for the future. It seems like every company is every CEO, everybody that owns their own business, they're struggling with that same thing, whether they're a trucking company, a manufacturing company, or a financial company. We all have the same wants and needs.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was talking to Doug Farron at the National Center for the Middle Market. They publish the biggest issues for these companies, and they're, at least from what I saw, a little bit he told me, it tends to be pretty much the same. Everybody's got that same issue with hiring and retaining talent. That's a major issue. There's some kind of economic kind of issue going out there, and I like the information that they put out there, because if you're in that kind of space, you're running a business, you don't feel alone, but you also then maybe have a resource like you where you can start asking your peers, hey, how do you deal with this? Everybody's got that problem.
Yep.
I think, to me, it's a constant evolution, which kind of brings up my next question. Over the time that you've run this business, what have you learned about yourself?
I don't know. I guess maybe I'm more of a risk taker than I give myself credit for.
Okay.
I don't know. When we did that, stepped out, we knew what we were getting into. But even beyond that, running a business, it's a risk every day. So it's not the same risk. But there's certain decisions that you make that you're basically betting everything that you built on this decision.
Right.
And most of the time, we don't necessarily take the easy way or the safest way sometimes.
Okay.
Now, I'm not talking about safety with trucks, but I'm just talking about business wise. Sometimes you got to step out and be uncomfortable. The other thing that I think one of the other things I figured out though is that I really like working. I like having a reason to get up in the morning and get out of the house. I think it's just part of who I am. And
yep.
I don't know. You talk about the work-life balance. I have a hard time picturing myself without work.
Yeah. Yeah. It becomes your identity, and there are a lot of things you enjoy about it. It's clear you enjoy the interaction with the people, and it seems you enjoy a little bit of the risk, maybe, right? It may have the pressure that you felt before, you maybe somewhat have become, that's every day for you almost, probably. The pressure you haven't started.
I don't know. I don't know if you just get used to the pressure. This was something that came up actually in a Vista meeting recently, and it was dealing with the pressure. And I'm like, I feel better now than I did when I was 30 and had the pressure of running what I was running then. I don't know. I'm not sure if you just mature with it or if you just get used to it, tolerate it. And there's certain things. We had a real bad day here a couple of weeks ago, and it was a bad day, and it got to me. But those days are few and far between.
Okay.
You have a bad day. Don't get me wrong, but it doesn't. It's not like you take it home with you. Not that might be the wrong way to say it. You're always taking it home with you, but it doesn't affect you. It's not like I go home, can't get along with somebody or anything like that.
Yeah, no, I get it. You probably do. You've learned how to deal with it, but it also might be part of the appeal for you. You might like that. Like, it gives you a reason to be there. It gives you energy when you're able to solve it and work through it. Those kind of things, I'm guessing. I don't want to put words in your mouth. But do you feel that?
Yeah, one of the things it's cool is, especially when you're dealing with younger people or people that haven't been in it as long, and they've got questions that you can just pop off an answer to. This is what I would do, and then there's no thought or struggle in it. It's just, this is just what I would do. This is for the outcome that we're looking for. This is how you do that. And I guess there's a certain amount of confidence in it. Made those decisions over and over again for so many years. You're just confident in that decision that you're making. I don't. And it's hard sometimes. And I know everybody's coming at it from something different, but I try to get that to my guys and my women that are making these decisions is I want them to make the decision. They get worried about what if I make the wrong decision? Then we learn from it. We don't do that again.
Yeah.
But to me, that's how you learn. If you make a decision and it's a wrong decision, is it going to kill the company? As long as it's not going to do those kind of things, nobody got hurt, nobody gets hurt. And if it was ethical, then let's make a decision. If it's the wrong decision, then we'll learn from it and we'll try to do better next time. But I think sometimes making the wrong decision is better than making no decision.
Oh boy, yeah. And it sounds like you're enabling your people to make those decisions, move quickly, and look, it's okay to make some mistakes. You'll learn from them. We'll learn from them. We'll be a better company for it.
Absolutely. And sometimes just being able to, the big thing is having somebody that can identify that was a mistake.
Yeah.
The bigger problem is if you have somebody that makes a mistake, but they don't realize that they made a mistake.
Yeah.
That's, to me, that becomes a much harder issue to deal with because now you got to teach that person why that was a mistake. I love it when somebody, I hate to say that, but if somebody comes to me and they're like, hey, I made a mistake, I want to make you aware of it. I am awesome. I'm great with that. More concerning is when somebody doesn't understand that they made a mistake.
Yeah.
Everybody makes mistakes. I make mistakes. If you don't make mistakes, I don't know that you're doing enough.
Yeah. You're probably not human either, right?
It's just, I don't expect perfection from me or anybody else, honestly. But you try to do things the right way.
Chad, it seems like you built a great culture there. I can see why, as I hear you talk, why the company's been successful. What's your outlook first for the next 12 months? And then what are your aspirations for the business or maybe over the next 5 years?
We're trying to grow. Again, we really think with some of the changes going on that it's going to be good for the American economy, for American shipping.
Okay.
I think it may take a little longer. We were really hoping that things would pick up by May. It's going to take a little longer than that now.
Okay.
Some downward pressures. But I think overall, though, the people that we talk to, outlooks are up.
Okay.
Which is different. We're expecting growth. We're in hiring mode right now. We just hired a new manager for our brokerage company.
Okay.
We're looking for some more help in brokerage, and we're looking for some more drivers and trucks. So we're trying to grow, and I don't really see much changing in that regard in the next 5 years. I think once we get past what's going on in the economy right now and things start to pick up, I think they start building on themselves. I think when you got people making decisions and they're positive about the future, they're going to spend money on new product lines or whatever that is. I think people will take some chances, which is going to put, excuse me, which will put more goods out there to be moved. So I really think trucking starts picking up in the next 3 to 6 months. And hopefully it rolls for the next 5, 7, 10 years. Hopefully.
Okay.
I've never seen trucking is very up and down. But normally you see 2 down periods in a year's time. But overall growth. Okay. We haven't really seen that in the last 3.5 years. It's been a real struggle.
Okay.
We've seen growth. Us personally, Highways and Skyways, we've seen growth. We forced it to grow essentially. That first year in 2022, We fell off from 2021 so massively. We're just now getting back to where we were. And I think a lot of people are in the same boat. So
Okay.
and like I say, with the pressure on rates, we're doing way more work to produce the same amount or even less revenues. So
Yeah.
having more miles to produce the same amount of revenue isn't a great formula for us, but we think that's going to change here in the next little while.
Okay. Do you see yourself expanding your footprint? Because I feel, at least a little bit, I know you're mostly in the Southeast is where you distribute, right? That's your
We
geography.
are, yes. Yeah, so we're right outside of Charlotte. Our terminal is located in Gastonia.
Mm-hmm.
I park trucks here, and I still park trucks in Charlotte. Footprint wise, the local drivers cover basically 4 states, and then our road guys do about 18 states. I
Okay.
don't see much change in that. The only thing that probably will happen in the next 5 years is we'll open up another facility. And I'm not sure yet if it'll probably be either Charleston or Savannah.
Okay.
It'll be to work in close relationship with this facility.
Okay.
We'll expand that way. So
The ports.
we're trying to expand the brokerage company. We'd really like to do more. The brokerage feeds the trucking company a lot of times. But the brokerage, what it does is it enables us. If you're a shipper, Jeff, I come to you. I've got, I don't know, 46 trucks, I think, right now. So when I come to you, it's hard I want to handle a certain lane for you. The problem is when you call me and all my trucks are full, I can't cover that lane for you. And that's going to strain our relationship. With my brokerage company, what we do is if you'll give me that lane all the time, I'll take care of it. Most of the time, it's going to be my truck. But if my trucks are full, then I'll send in a partner carrier to pick that load up and move it for you. That way, you always get service. You always get to deal with me or one of my people, and we take care of that lane for you. So that's how brokerage and trucking work together.
Yeah. Okay.
The loads, a lot of times the loads will come in, and one of our bigger customers, the loads come into brokerage. Trucking covers everything they can cover, and then the brokerage covers everything else.
Find someone else. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And when you say like Charleston or Savannah, are you getting more to the ports down there, or is there just more activity kind of that direction?
It would be more directed at the ports.
At the ports. Okay. I got it. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of freight comes in through those ports now. I think it's changed. That's changed. If I understand, over the last maybe 10 years, that's changed down there.
Yeah, it's really changed. They've been able to take bigger ships in there. The other thing that you're seeing is people, and I think some of this has changed permanently. We've seen some people, there was so much problems with the ports on the West Coast. Some traffic has been diverted to the East Coast, and I think it's permanent. I think some of them just got tired of getting ships stuck out in the ocean. They couldn't get them unloaded. And so I think some of that is permanent movement to the East Coast. And we want to be a part of that. We're going to try to take advantage, if you will, but it's a market we want to get into that we're not necessarily in right now, but we're bringing in people. That's what their background is.
Okay.
Like I say, that's on our agenda to get going here in the near future.
I see. Okay, good. Okay, so I'm just looking at the clock here. I think we got time for one more question. I'll save the best for the last. So you've been through the decision to start up a new business, right? So what kind of advice would you have for a new executive, a CEO, or a new business owner that's just starting up his own business?
I guess the main thing would be to just do it. If you're starting your own business, and if I was dealing like with my kids, I've got 2 adult children, and what I tried to explain to them is work your way through other businesses, find something you're good at and something that has monetary value. And you hear a lot of people talk about do what you're passionate about. I don't really agree with that. And I've got personal experience in that. I was a guitar player. I owned a music store. It became a job, and it was always a sideline business, but there wasn't really any money in it. And so, to me, you find someplace where you find an industry that you're good at, and then once you're ready, start it. My only regret really is that I didn't do this sooner.
Mm.
And I wouldn't have done it tremendously sooner because I would have missed out on some experience that I needed before heading into this. But once you have that experience, if you get yourself set up financially at home, cut your expenses down to, like when I started this, I had a house payment and my wife had a job, and we were willing to take the risk and give it a go. See, you got to do all those things. You can't go into it broke. Start your own thing. But like I say, but do it. Give it a shot. And even, I hate to say it, but worst case, even if it doesn't work out, you did it. You tried. And worst case, you have to go back to doing what you were doing. And I guess that's where I was when we started this. It was like, okay, worst case, we fail. I'm going to have to go back to work for somebody running a terminal or running an operation for somebody somewhere. What did I really lose? I lost money that I spent, some time, but I feel very confident I could have gone back out, found another job. Would it have been as good as the job I left? Maybe not. I don't know. But the other side of it is this turned out okay. Got 60 people. We created 60 jobs. There could be somebody out there that's thinking about starting something, and maybe they create way more jobs than we have. But the only way you know is by taking that leap of faith, going out.
Yeah, I think it's a great story, Chad. I think as I think about middle market companies, you are the epitome of that, right? The job growth that you're creating, the size of the business, the type of the business, it fits exactly with the type of people that I have on the show. And I really enjoyed having you. I appreciate your insights. I think everybody will appreciate that. For everybody that's listening, if you have questions or comments for Chad, feel free to send them to me and I'll pass them on to Chad. I would like to hear your feedback. I'll leave my email in the show notes. So I'll just say it here quickly, jeff@impact-coaching-llc.com. So Chad, again, thank you for being on the show and thank you for being the first guest.
Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, same here.